Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this week's Q&A. This week, we have Tanya Flanagan with us. Tanya is our immediate past board president and the current interim ED for us at Susan G. Komen. She's also the public information administrator for our website for Clark County. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Sherry. It is a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for getting involved and listening to our Q&A.
Again, I do appreciate you joining us today. It's actually been a topic that you and I have discussed before about doing this very Q&A.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're in it with us. You have to excuse any household noises because we're both recording from our homes because of
COVID-19. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, you might get to meet one of the cats that joins us. So I just wanted to give you a heads up about that.
Animal lover here, so no problem. Furry things are our friends. I had a dog myself, so I understand. She
Lovely.
liked to chase cats. She wanted them to act a certain way, though. So yeah, they didn't act right. She was upset about it.
And that's what we love. So I wanted you to talk to us, if you would, about, we actually had this interesting conversation about the timing of reconstruction after breast cancer. A lot of decisions that need to be made, and a lot is going on in your mind, obviously, when you're dealing with the diagnosis and all of that. So I'm wondering if you would kind of take us through how you dealt with it, and what were some of the deciding factors for you?
Oh, absolutely. You know, looking back at the time that I was in it, I thought, am I ever going to get through this? I had a wonderful doctor. So that's one humongous step. Make sure you are comfortable with your doctor. It is a very long relationship that you're going to have with the person who does your reconstruction. I had Dr. Carl Williams. He was wonderful. And my last diagnosis was 2008. So I did chemotherapy from 2008 until 2009, you know, the hard stuff where you go into the center and they hook you up and intravenous, all that good stuff. So I decided upon doing the simple right mastectomy, taking as much tissue as I could off the right side, because that was where I had 3 diagnoses of breast cancer in the same breast. From 2003 through 2008 was the last one. So it was 03, 07, and 08. 08, I said, let's just take the tissue, let's stop giving it some space to grow in. Immediate reconstruction was an option, and it's an option for a lot of women. You know, they take the breast off, they take the tissue, and they put an expander in immediately. And I think what happens is they say immediate reconstruction, and people think, oh, they're going to take this breast, and I'm going to have a breast. Well, that's not how it works. And the breast is removed, and then the process is started to reconstruct, which means they put an expander in and begin this process. I opted not to do immediate and to just go through the procedure to remove, to get the pathology report back on the tissue that they had removed from the breast and see what type of cancer they found, what type of course of treatment was going to be needed, and to go from there. So I actually was a year and about 6 months post tissue removal, mastectomy removing surgery before I even started reconstruction. And for me, that was better. It allowed me to have sort of a peace of mind, or not so much peace of mind, but just to be focused on one aspect and not 2. So it wasn't like I was going to chemotherapy every 3 weeks. And I was triple positive. So we knew that the carboplatin, Herceptin, Taxoterra treatment approach was going to work for me based on studies at least. And I didn't have to worry about managing how I was feeling and diet and fatigue while at the same time seeing a plastic surgeon about reconstruction. I just did one thing and then I did the next thing.
Right.
And that was better for me.
Now, when you went to your doctor, Did they actually lay it all out for you? Did they tell you the pros and cons of both options? Or do you feel your doctor also wanted you to wait?
I sought that out myself. And being that it was my third time in the ring, if you will, I got very, very engaged. Like the first time, I was ductal carcinoma in situ. That's what I was diagnosed with. It was stage 0. So the cancer cells were contained to a milk duct. So we went in and they did a lumpectomy and removed that area, got clear margins, everything's great. Had the option of doing radiation and declined due to statistical research that didn't add up to say you should definitely subject yourself to radiation therapy. So I declined that. Move forward 4 years later, here's the second diagnosis. I did a second lumpectomy. Some funky stuff went on with the bracketing through the radiology technician of where my surgeon was to go, my breast surgeon, not my plastic surgeon, where the breast surgeon was to go to extract, again, tissue, ductal carcinoma in situ, stage 0, back-to-back the same diagnosis for me. So some stuff got a little funky with the bracketing and where she was pulling the tissue from. So when the pathology report came back, it was clear that there were no cancer cells. And we had to wait and make sure we really got it, or if we got an area, but not the right area. Kind of think we maybe didn't get the right area. 9 months later came my third diagnosis. So by time number 3, I was very just checked into everything and all things breast cancer, what's going on with my body, what do I want to do? Like it was the first one was like, just fix it. I was 32. I just wanted to get back to my life. I was working for the casino. I had just started with MGM Resorts International now. It was MGM Mirage Resorts International. Now it's MGM Resorts International. And I had just started on this cool job and I just wanted to get to my life. Well, the third time I was like, I need to understand everything that's happening to me. Because the second time I was just flat out angry, like, why is this even back? I've done this. Didn't I do this? Dear God, what are we doing?
Yeah.
By time number 3, I was like, okay, what's going on?
What is going on here?
What am I, the poster child of breast cancer here? So I was all engaged to what's the medication? What's the treatment course? What does it mean to reproduction? I was 38. A lot of decisions were going on in that space. And I checked in completely. So I actually was given the option by my breast surgeon and referred to a doctor that would have done immediate reconstruction. I did my homework on that particular doctor. What's the bedside manner? How much care do they give? Because it is very different as a woman have your breasts removed. No, they don't define us, but they're part of who we are. I mean, it's part of motherhood. It's part of your femininity. It's part of your outward appearance. It's part of what, makes the clothes we wear look pretty. I mean, it's just, we're girls. That's, girls have girls.
Yeah.
So, I really checked into it and I saw the doctor who was recommended for the immediate reconstruction, and his bedside manner just left me going, no, he couldn't tell me what it's going to look like, what to expect. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about this. Well, who else is going to worry about it? So I ended up calling the plastic surgeon I chose in previous years. His brother, who's currently a judge here, had been my attorney. So I knew he was a plastic surgeon, but I didn't know what kind of plastic surgery he really specialized in, but his reputation preceded him. So I called him up, called the office and said, hey, can I see Dr. Williams? I'm going through this. And the office said, oh, he doesn't do breast reconstruction anymore. And I said, tell him to call me. You just have that convicting spirit. Tell him to call me. So he did, and I told him what was going on, and I just wanted a consult to understand the process. He said, come on in, let's talk about it. And as we did, the conversation went in a way that he said, so what I will do, and what I will do after that, and what will happen after this. And I said, so are you saying that you're gonna do this for me? And he said, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Call me when you're done with your chemotherapy, finish it, get comfortable with that. Let's see what your pathology report says, and we'll go from there. And that's how I came into the space of taking the time, doing my due diligence, seeing more than one plastic surgeon, seeing more than one surgeon, no matter what, if you have the time.
Right.
If you have the time, that's crucial, because you may have a more aggressive cancer that you need to get out immediately. But then I would say do back-to-back second and third opinions. Schedule 3 in 1 week if you need to. But I went through the process of researching them and having those conversations and finding the person that I felt would be kind of a friend and extended family that would care for me as much as I was caring for myself, to make sure the process went well. And he did a phenomenal job.
So I don't know that you have the answer to this question, but out of curiosity, have you thought about, not that it would ever come back, because that's the plan, right? No more breast cancer in your life, ever again.
Ever again.
But is it something you have to discuss with the plastic surgeon at that time too? Or can you, is it something that you don't think about at all? Or how does that work in this whole scenario?
What if it comes back?
Yeah.
I will say, I used to be, when I first moved to Las Vegas 24 years ago, I came here to work for the Review Journal. I was a reporter. And my mom, let's add another chapter to this story. My mother had breast cancer. I lost her to breast cancer.
Oh, man.
So when my mother was diagnosed, when it came back, she was in remission for 5 years. It came back, they found a tumor in her liver while I was working at the RJ that eventually spread to her bones. So at the time, breast cancer most commonly spread to the liver, the bones, and the lungs. Now we've also seen that it spreads to the brain. So at the time, hers had spread to her liver, and I wanted to understand it more. So as a reporter, I dug into it and did an article on 3 amazing women who lived here, who had breast cancer and beat it and told their story. They allowed me to tell their stories as a reporter. And one of those people was Sandra Jackson, and I think Sandra's still alive. But she was an amazing fighter. Sandra's breast cancer after a mastectomy came back in her chest wall. So in most cases, you like to believe that taking off the tissue, removing the tissue and cleaning that area out as much, remove that breast area out as much, is cutting off, this is the end, like there's no pipeline for breast cancer. And that's what, we want to believe is happening. And for the most part, it is what is happening. But in her case, it did come back in the chest wall. She had it in her lungs, and then she beat that. And then she got it in her chest wall, and she beat that. So the conversation you really have is, and that's where maybe the BRCA test comes in, the genetic testing, where you find out, am I predisposed to developing breast cancer in the other breast or in my ovaries and my reproductive system? Which I did do that test many, many years ago. And it said I was not genetically predisposed, and that was not the source of it, despite my mother's case. And to that, also at the time of women of color, I don't think the tests were as conclusive as, because sometimes these tests are based on cultural commonalities or cultural characteristics. My mom has 5 sisters, and some of them have daughters. And for years, none of my aunts ever developed breast cancer. And about a year or 2 ago, my mom's sister, one of my mother's sisters, finally did, unfortunately, get a breast cancer diagnosis.
Oh, man.
But it was 18 to 20 years after my mother's passing before any one of her sisters ever had any type of real scare or problem. So you do kind of think about it, but the idea is that by removing this breast, you reduce the chance of breast cancer coming, but it doesn't mean it can't, because metastasized breast cancers can come back in your liver, your bones, your lungs, and now your brain. In my case, they did what's called a sentinel node biopsy, where they take the lymph nodes in the underarm. So in the underarm pit adjacent to the breast area that was problematic for me, they took some lymph nodes and tested, and I had very small traces of the cancer cells leading into the bloodstream.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what led to me doing the chemotherapy in the first place. And I did a PET scan, so all of my other organs were clear at the time. And
right.
They've been clear ever since.
Yes. So, but you're still getting mammograms, are you not?
You absolutely do. They do mammograms on the left side because I didn't. I did a simple, which meant I only took one side of the tissue, breast tissue, off my chest. Now, for a woman who does a double mastectomy, there's nothing to do a mammogram on.
Right.
That's a done deal. I think one of the bigger questions might be, at the time of having a single breast removed, what do you feel, or what goes into the thought process to do a double mastectomy? Because we've come a long way in that space of understanding quality of life for women in terms of symmetry and reconstructive surgery. Reconstructing an unnatural breast with a natural breast is a challenging process. And of course, you don't get the girls that God gave you that are, identical. And people, often say, oh, well, one's larger than the other one anyway. No. Stop that. No. That's the worst thing you can say. I look at people who like to say to me, because they think, oh, I'm going to make her feel better.
Yeah.
One's larger than the other one anyway.
Yeah.
Stop that. Don't do that. Not the same. Not the same. Very different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so knowing everything you know now, right? Now you've had years of a couple of years of living in this scenario. Would you do it the exact same way again?
There's a part of me, yes, and we're going to have I'm going to be as honest as I can about this portion of the conversation, and also as discreet as possible. I'll put it in two different categories. If you're single and young, or if you're married, or if you're committed. So let's put it in three buckets. Because we're talking about, a little bit about it is quality of life. A large part of it is quality of life. But then there's also your sexuality within that quality of life. There's your just self-confidence in that quality of life space. So there's the one side where, we saw Angelina Jolie go through this, and she did it. I think Christina Applegate did too in our stardom space, did the instant double mastectomy. So they just came back, took them off, and I had a girlfriend locally who did a double mastectomy, and she eventually got around to putting them both back on. And she did the double mastectomy because she had small children. There's also motherhood in that space. She had young boys, and she wanted to make sure she did everything possible to be around for her babies to grow up with them. I think that might have even been a bit of Angelina Jolie's consideration at the time she had adopted the children. Symmetry is easier to be achieved by taking off two breasts and putting two things back, because the two things match. So when you get ready to get dressed and go out to the world, you just look even and nobody knows.
Right.
At the time that I went through it, insurance didn't automatically allow you to choose to take the other breast off. So you had to go through the insurance fight and haggle for approval. So it wasn't just something. And so now we're talking about your health. And do you spend for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, who knows how long it's going to take to go back and forth with an insurance company to get them to approve you to take the other breast at the same time when that breast is not impacted by breast cancer. You come farther, thankfully, in women's health care, to where now you can choose to have the other breast removed because of quality of life symmetry. I could go back and even them out that way, but it's back to the drawing board. and I just don't. And I've looked into it and decided I don't have the mental, emotional stamina to start this whole reconstruction process over again for that purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a part of me that now psychologically, mentally, health-wise, knowing what I know now, if I knew it then, or if I could hear it then, because I think there's so much going on in your head at the time that you're dealing with breast cancer. And at the time, I think doctors were into breast conservation surgery,
Right.
conserving a breast. Dr. Stephanie Christensen serves on our Komen board as well. And she and I had a really good conversation one time about statistical studies showing that women who keep a breast versus women who take off both breasts have a different quality of life. And it kind of comes into the 3 buckets I talked about. Are you single? Are you married? Or are you in a committed relationship? Because it still adds a sort of sense of, I don't know if normalcy is the word, but it's a different intimacy, still having the natural part of that part of the anatomy, still having something natural in that space for your partner, husband, whoever, boyfriend that you're with. I think there's some added value. But we then get to weighing added value to health, quality of health. For me, my other breast was never a factor and has never been a factor. Mm-hmm. So it's never posed a health threat to me in the cancer space. But it doesn't mean that there isn't always a subconscious to constantly check and make sure I'm 100% okay and not just 50% okay.
Right.
So that's, it's so many things that go into would I do it the same, would I do it differently on the vanity side of just when it's time to go get an evening gown and go to Black Tie Affair number 357. And I'm looking at all these gorgeous strappy dresses because what is evening attire but strappy and feminine and seductive and gorgeous and beautiful. And you're trying to find something to hoist the girls up and the girls aren't even anymore. And you're like, I put on one more dress. And I remember one year just bawling. I was crying. I could not find a dress for an event. And it was all because I couldn't find something that I felt confident in, given the circumstances. And I only found one dress that I really thought was beautiful on me. Because you want to feel beautiful, and that's an inner confidence. Right. That once the inner confidence is there, it shines through on the outside. And I only found one dress that really made the inner me say, "This is wow." And I remember crying, and I remember it being super expensive. And I remember getting really frustrated in the process, and I was almost out of time for this event. And it required alterations too, because I waited to the last, between working out, trying to be, the best body I could be everywhere else. And then going to find the dress and only finding one that fit the bill. I remember talking with my dad, and bless his heart, losing my mom 20 years ago now and going through this journey 3 times with his only daughter. He has been a wonderful father and a great support system. And calling him, and I was so upset. And he says, "Why are you crying like this?" I said, "I can't find anything to wear. This reconstruction, this whole experience." He was like, "Oh, baby girl, stop crying. Go get whatever dress works. Daddy will, whatever you need, just go get it. Because the last thing I want you to do is be stressed out over something like that if I can help you. And I can help you. So just go get whatever you want." And it was like, okay. But it was one of the moments that I thought about, and I think that was the trigger point that said, what would life be like if I evened them out? And I started looking into it at that point. Right. And it was just back to ground zero. Take them both off, get expanders on both sides, go through the expander process, which is by far the worst part. We can talk about expanders real quick. And I didn't have the stamina. So, right. Yeah.
But that's good. It's good to know yourself. Also, do you feel like, I feel this for me, and it's not reconstruction surgery, it's everything else about myself, that I'm much harder on myself I look at myself more intently than I look at the people around me. I don't look at people and be like, wow, that woman's hair is 2/4 of an inch too short. You know what I mean? But me, I look at everything about me and I'm like, oh, this is off and that is off and that is the other. And I can't even look at that. And I notice that we do that to ourselves, especially as women, all the time. Yeah. So do you think that, but that's okay, right? That's who we are. I'm not invalidating that. That is a process that we all have to go through and kind of adjust to who we are and what we look like. You have to do the same thing with reconstruction, don't you?
Absolutely. You know, we are our own worst critic. We've been saying that about ourselves for years. You know, you find the things that you like about yourself, fixate on that. And I think as you go through life and you have experiences that are more challenging and bring about different rewards, we reprioritize what we focus on and what we hone in and what we criticize. I believe 100% there's beauty in every person. And I try to look for that before I look for anything else, because I think something about every woman and every person makes them beautiful. Whether it's cheekbones, eye color, eye shape, hair, whatever. Something about each one of us is just absolutely beautiful, and it's our thing. Reconstruction, even before I got to that, I think the mirror plays tricks on your mind, though. You know, you look in a mirror and you can see what you want to see for a long time. And it wasn't until I got to the point of deciding to get all the tissue removed, I didn't even see how much the lumpectomies had changed my breast until my niece was here for the surgery with me. And we, for the heck of it, did a before and after picture. And it, you know, it's like a picture tells the truth. A mirror reflection may tell the truth too, if you kind of get the mirror's angle just right and you don't look at the mirror with your mind, you look at the other mirror, you're like, oh, that's what that really looks like.
Yes.
So she did a before and after picture, and I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even realized how much the 2003 and 2007 lumpectomy surgeries had changed my natural breast. So that was like, oh wow, what was I holding on to at this point? They had taken so much with lumpectomies that I was like, oh, I didn't realize they had taken so much over the years. I would look in the mirror, and to me, they looked exactly the same on both sides, because my mind had played enough tricks that they look normal. And then she did the picture, and I was like, oh, that's what's really going on. So yeah, we can be our own worst critic, and you just have to get to a place of being, it doesn't define you. It's not the greatest thing about you, and it's not the worst thing about you.
Right.
And it's no different than if you want to tone up your thigh or lose some weight in your midsection or whatever. You know, it doesn't define you. It's just one aspect. And the important thing is to love who you are. And I come to use it as part of the testimony in my journey. If I can help someone else better understand it. It took time, because initially you don't just want to announce that you had to go through this particular type of surgery, and as a woman now your body's been altered. But one of the things I love is when I see the women who are brave enough to maybe do the calendars or take the picture and show the battle wound show. I'm like, that's hot. Like, that takes courage. Like, that's what's up. You know, that woman is a rock star.
Right.
And I really admire those women who do some of those photos, and they just kind of show you what it's, here it is. There was a lady who did a Coleman fashion show for us a couple of years, and she had removed both of her breasts and she didn't put them back. And her husband would come with her, and he was super supportive. She was absolutely beautiful.
Right.
And had taken both of them off, and she never put them back on. And she lived her life. She didn't do prosthetics. She just a chest.
Just did her thing.
Just did her thing.
And I think that's one of the things that I want to leave everybody with, as a matter of fact, is one, there are options. And two, the most important option is to do what is, true to you, correct?
True.
So
Yeah.
it's good to have options, though, right? I mean, people can absolutely not only reconstruct, but I have a friend that did have a double mastectomy too, and she was an A when she started, and she is
a D.
C++. Yeah. And she looks great. She would have looked great. She looked great as an A. She looks great now. It doesn't matter. But what does matter is what she wanted to do, like what was in her heart. And so I know, I feel, and I could be wrong because I'm not in this situation, but so at no point, because I know you had a great doctor, but at no point you felt like pushed into doing anything in particular, correct?
I did not. I really did not. It was 100%. I think the doctor is really important. Like I said, the first doctor that I saw didn't want to answer a lot of questions for me. He just wanted me to hand, kind of lack of a better way to put it, hand my life over to him, and he makes some decisions, and I was just going to live with those decisions when we came out on the other side. And I was like, no, I'm not. I can't do that. I need to understand the process and what to expect from it. I'm very good and capable of that. I mean, we're grown women. And so you give us what our options are and let us evaluate those options and then make a decision and get our head wrapped around what it is that I'm going to be dealing with, because when it's all said and done, the doctor is not living this life, I am. But if you equip me with information, I can make smart decisions and I can prepare myself for how I'm going to adjust.
Right.
Whether for some women it's wearing a scarf more often because it's slightly different, or you might have loved a certain neckline at one point in your life and you might say, you know what, like plunging necklines are less my option now. It's just things you adjust to, but let me get prepared to make those adjustments.
Right.
And let's talk about what that looks like.
So you would recommend asking a lot of questions?
Oh, absolutely. Ask questions, get comfortable. There's a lot more treatment options now. There's different designs with implants now. They function differently. There are a number of different ways they can create. Some women can take excess fat from their back. Some can take fat from their belly. So you can have more natural tissue replaced in your breast. But what does that mean? Does that mean that now that I'm putting tissue back, will it function in any way like breast tissue? Right. Or will it be functioning like body tissue from somewhere else that I still have the reduced chance of breast cancer coming back? And that is the whole reason why you do a mastectomy. Right. To reduce the chance of recurrence. It's adding to that option. I will say that reconstruction is very painful. So, we didn't talk about that, but it's like the 800-pound gorilla on your chest when you start. You can't even move. Yeah.
Well, you said like the spacers was an entirely different conversation. So, and that's something that stretches out the skin, correct? So to make room. Yeah. Okay. Passing out now. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, but I also want to advocate for, I love the idea of one, asking a lot of questions. Two, I want to do a pitch right now. I'm doing a commercial for 877-GO-KOMEN. It's not, the thing about that phone line is it's not just, oh my gosh, I have breast cancer, what do I do now? But now, hey, I'm done with treatment. I've got to make some decisions. Help me figure out where I'm going. Just someone to talk to. It's a nurse navigator that'll help you navigate, questions to ask, things to keep in mind. So if you just are looking for someone to discuss it with, that's a great place to go. The 877-GO-KOMEN number is a great place to go. So, all right, what have we not asked about reconstruction? Like, is there 5 questions we should be asking the doctor every time, or?
I think once you get a really good doctor, you're going to be in really good hands. Just make sure you're comfortable with that. You're going to be in really good hands with the doctor and the staff, and you're going to be together for a while. I'm crazy, and I drag my process out forever. I mean, I ran for office for city council in the middle of this. I served on a national board for the National Urban League Young Professionals, so I traveled. He really accommodated my personal crazy, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
in that I did a lot of things because life did not stop for me. And I didn't let breast cancer take it over and slow me down.
Mm-hmm.
I was a busy girl. A lot of people won't start like me. Like I started literally probably a year and a half after my surgery to remove the breast tissue. I started reconstruction. Some people do start immediately. It wasn't good for me. It
Right.
doesn't mean that wouldn't be a good option for others to just, here's this process. I want to get in. I want to get it over with, because it can happen at the same time that you're going through whatever your chemotherapy might be.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been going on simultaneously, I assume, for me, had I started immediate reconstruction, because I had to go get chemotherapy every 3 weeks and have them hook up, you know, the intravenous treatment through the port. I'm glad I wasn't doing both.
Mm-hmm.
With dietary changes and taste buds changing and fatigue, and what if you need radiation? Man, it's a lot of stuff. So I'm glad I waited.
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed not to have radiation and have to do reconstruction. Radiation can make reconstruction harder because you're burning you're zapping the skin with radiation, and now you want to stretch the skin out. And radiation,
Yeah.
I understand, makes it a little bit more leathery. I was blessed not to go through radiation.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's case is going to be different. That's the
Right.
key.
And then, and this is actually, it's funny because when I do our Wednesday check-ins, the last thing I'm always telling people is do what is best for you. Don't let anybody force you into leaving your house early because we want to get the economy jump-started, which I do. I love the economy. I love living in the United States, without a doubt. But if you're concerned about your health, then take care of yourself. That's what
You have to be your first priority.
Yeah.
You have to check in. I say read everything you can, because even the medications going through, there isn't much medication that's associated with reconstruction, and that's what we're talking about today. But in the breast care space of chemotherapy, read those drug some summaries that they give you, because one drug treats something else. And you need to know what the side effects are, so that if you see those symptoms, like one of the major side effects of chemotherapy treating breast cancer for me was the drugs could cause uterine cancer. Well, I didn't have the stamina to get another cancer while treating one cancer. But when I started to feel symptoms that felt like they went with that, I was able to say to my oncologist, hey, I'm noticing some lower back pain. It's consistent with what the drug summary said could happen. Do we need to check a couple of other things? Yes, let's pump the brakes on this. Let's rule this out and make sure you're still healthy and we're on track.
Mm-hmm.
So because I had taken the time to read about the treatment in its entirety, I was able to watch my body and watch for changes that otherwise I might have not even connected the dots on. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I encourage women to do that. And it takes something, because like I said, the first time I did not check in like that. I was young. I just went to the doctor to fix it. The second time, I was angry. The third time, let me become a guru. So,
right? I mean, and really the third time, 3 breast cancer diagnoses, that's a lot.
It's a lot. And all in my 30s. All in my 30s. I would have never thought 4 years after we buried my mom that I would be told, hey, and it was in the same breast. So for it to not be genetic, or thought to not be genetic initially, was also very interesting for me. But
yeah. Wow. You know what? This has been great. A lot to think about, but yet we can narrow it down into ask a lot of questions, focus on what's good for and
think of, and it is a little bit of fun. Think about what makes you happy, like you said with your friend. Yeah. Well, maybe you were a B. Maybe you wanted to be a C.
Maybe you want to be a C.
I wanted to be a full B, small C. That's not how it turned out. I feel like I'm a little fuller than that, but whatever. But in the end, he did amazing work. He worked on me for a long time in that last one. He sat me up, he said. He looked at what they were going to look like, and So just get a doctor who cares. Yeah. Our doctors are good doctors here. Caring doctor the caring doctor is what's going to make the difference.
And it's okay to interview them, right? I mean, it's a job that they're going to do, and you want them to do the best possible job they can do. So,
and some of that may be tied to insurance, but if you have the privilege of doing your due diligence across your insurance plan, do your due diligence.
Those are great words to live by. I love it. So Tanya, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been excellent, and I know that it will be useful. Even if it reaches one person that it's useful for, that's great. But I feel you're talking to a lot of people out there right now. So thank you so much for joining us today.